Create a beautiful job-winning resume with an
Shall I start?
Yes, feel free to do.
Okay, thank you for being here today. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. My name is Mona Sawan, and I'm honored to join you from Lebanon. Our focus today is on understanding by design, commonly known as the UbD. This framework guides us in designing curriculum with a clear emphasis on student understanding and also real-world application. It's developed by Grant Wiggins and Jim Tai. UbD design begins by asking, what do we want students to understand and be able to do? From there, we plan backward to create effective learning experiences. So throughout this session, we will explore how to develop meaningful and purposeful learning units using this approach. But first, I will share a link on the chat box, please. Just open it and answer the question.
انتوا رايحين بكره وبعد بكره؟ يا بكره يابا انا خميس لا انا
Okay, here we go. صار موجود it's now on the chat box. Just press on it, please. And I will present here your answer. Okay, so what is one word that describes how you feel about curriculum design? You have 2 minutes to answer, please. Challenging. Maybe you are curious. Interesting word. Team. Maybe motivated, maybe confident, maybe nervous, right? So here, okay, transformative team, consuming, time consuming, yet sometimes rewarding, transformative. Okay, thank you all for your collaboration. So what is UbD? UbD is more than a planning tool. It's a philosophy. It integrates curriculum, instruction, assessment, so everything is aligned toward deep understanding. Let's think of it as starting with the destination clearly marked on your map, okay? We then plan the journey backwards from there. For example, so if the goal is for students to understand person's writing, we design the unit so that every step prepares them to craft a strong argument for a real audience. Here are the big ideas that drive UbD. Backward design means we plan with the end in mind. So transfer is the ultimate goal. So can students apply their learning in new contexts? Understanding via big ideas ensures that students see patterns and meaning, not isolated facts. So meaningful learning is engaging and purposeful. Let me give you an example. Teacher teaching a story, as you know, isn't just about plot, points, and characters. The big idea might be stories reveal universal human experiences and emotions that connect us all. That's meaningful. Here is the difference. Key points to remember. So to use UbD, we must clarify the results before designing lessons. Think like an assessor, not just an activity planner. I will give you an example. Don't ask, let's say, what fun activity can we do on ecosystems? You can ask, how will students demonstrate they understand the use of symbolism in literature? That's the shift. So too often, students are passive, repeating back facts without thinking deeply. Most test questions focus on recall, but understanding involves thinking. Instead of asking, what is a metaphor? Ask students to explain how a metaphor enhances the meaning in a poem or story they have read. Okay? That requires deeper analysis. Okay? Here, how to use UbD effectively. In this slide, you see the difference between knowing and understanding. Knowing, this example, the Constitution created 3 branches of government. Understanding, it was compromise to solve power struggles. So students might know vocabulary about photosynthesis, but understanding means they can explain why it matters that plants convert sunlight into energy, which support entire ecosystems. Here is the difference between knowing and understanding. What can content mastery do? Mastering content is just the beginning. So the end goal is a transfer, using that content to solve problems. Students who understand percentage can compare maybe cell phone plans or calculate tax. That's real life learning. Content becomes a tool, not the final goal. It's a tool. I will give you an example. Let's say we are teaching fractions. Instead of starting with pie charts, begin with real problems. Splitting a bill at a restaurant, adjusting a receipt, or comparing something. These real life tasks show why fractions matter and motivate students to learn. Another example. Grammar isn't about worksheets. It's about effective communication. So if students are writing a job application letter, let's say, they must use proper grammar to make a good impression. That's the performance goal, and we work backward from there. So what's the point? The point here and the core purpose of UbD is to create independent thinkers who can solve problems. And you know, this is the most important skill. We are not preparing them just for tests. We are preparing them for life. So every unit should equip them with the skills and understanding that matters outside the classroom. Right? The UbD has 3 stages. First stage is identify desired results, determine acceptable evidence, plan learning experiences. We don't start by asking, we don't start what textbook chapter is next. Instead, we ask what should the students understand and be able to do? And we plan from there. Stage 1, as you see here in this slide, includes goals, understandings, essential questions, knowledge and skills. For example, if the goal is understanding climate change, students should know terms like greenhouse gases, to understand that human activity affects the environment, be able to analyze data and propose solutions. So we are now diving into stage 1 of the backward design process. Identify desired results. Here we are asking, what's the goal? What's the goal of the unit? What big idea am I targeting? What do I want students to understand, know, and do? How does this connect to my standards? Everything begins here. Let me give you an example. If you teach a unit on, let's say, ecosystems, right? Your desired result might be students will understand that ecosystems are complex, interdependent systems that can be disrupted by human activity. That's deeper than just listing animals' name and plants. Here are the established goal, identify desired results. So what are big ideas? Big ideas are the backbone of meaningful learning. They are the core ideas. They are the core ideas at the heart of the discipline. Something students return to to life. They connect facts and skills. In math, the big idea of equivalence runs through fractions, ratios, and proportions, right? In history, let's say power and conflict framework, wars, revolutions, and civil rights movements. Think, what's the conceptual thread that gives meaning to your unit? How do I know if an idea is a big idea? Not all ideas are equal. A true big idea has these qualities. It's not obvious at first glance. It gives deep insights into the subject, and it evolves over time. You can prepare checklists. Okay, I will guide you. If you are teaching the concept of freedom, ask, let's say, is it prone to misunderstanding? Is it complex and evolving? Is it core to multiple disciplines? Yes, this is the big idea. Here is the big idea, and not all ideas are equal. A true big idea has these qualities. Look at this picture. Here we see fish in a jar, right? Aquarium. The big idea here, I don't understand the student. Where I'm heading with all these ideas. This is aligned with the stage 1, identify desired results. This represents the student before clarity. Okay, at this point, we are setting goals, defining the big ideas, and essential questions that will guide learning. The fish here in the jar reflects how students often feel at the beginning, unsure, lacking of sense of direction. Okay, in image 2, this holding the umbrella in the rain, the big idea here, now I understand what I have to learn and do. It's aligned with the second stage, determine acceptable evidence. Now the student is beginning to understand. The rain here, the drops, represent the complexity of learning, but the umbrella shows they are ready to handle it. They have been given the tools and guidance. Okay. Now, in stage 2, we define what evidence will show that students truly understand. This is when students start to make sense of their learning and apply it in a meaningful way. Concepts as big ideas. Here are some examples of common big ideas that may be span across subjects. Let's say in social studies, justice, power, conflict; in science, change, cycles, systems; in literature, identify, perspective, culture. So give students one of these words and ask them to find how it appears in every subject during the week you are teaching. They will start seeing learning as interconnected, not fragmented, right? So use big ideas from understanding and essential questions. Just to check, are you seeing my presentation?
Yes,
The
Mona.
PowerPoint slides? Yes, okay. Okay, there's where design gets exciting and intentional. Enduring understandings are the core ideas student retain. So when I say so what of your content, so essential questions are open-ended. Here is the difference. Enduring understandings, so what? Essential questions designed to spark curiosity and inquiry. Example, let's say big idea is the exploration, okay? Enduring understanding, exploration leads to discovery, change, and conflict. What is the essential question here? How does exploration shape what we know and what we value? Let us take a moment to talk about what enduring understanding should look like. These are not just facts or isolated skills. They are the big picture of ideas that students should carry with them long after the unit ends. Enduring understandings should be written as generalizations framed around big ideas, timeless, not limited to single unit or topic, not just facts or isolated vocabulary. Begin with the phrase, students will understand that, right? Students will understand that. Now, let us look at an example to see the difference, okay? Okay. I will show you strong example and weak example. A strong example, students will understand that energy can neither be created or nor destroyed, only transformed. This is a strong example. This is a universal scientific principle. It can be applied across units and disciplines, from physics to biology. It promotes deep understanding and invites students to make connections across learning. This is a strong example. I will give you a weak example, weaker. Energy moves through ecosystems. This is a true statement, but it's a fact, not an enduring understanding. It's too narrow and context specific. Students might memorize it without understanding the broader principle behind energy flow. You know, in Bloom's taxonomy, the first level is understanding, remember, understanding. We should avoid these levels. We should go deeper. Here are another examples of understandings. I like to give examples more just to make sure that the idea is delivered in a right way. So an effective story engages the reader by setting up tensions about what will happen next, right? This statement captures a deeper principle about storytelling. It explains why stories work and not just what they include. When water disappears, it turns into water vapor and can reappear as liquid if the water is cooled. This explains the process of the water cycle, helping students understand the underlying science behind everyday phenomena. Now, in contrast, okay, here are some non-examples. Audience and purpose. This is just a topic label, not a meaningful statement students can understand deeply. Water covers 3/4 of the Earth's surface. This is a fact, but it doesn't reveal the broader, okay? It doesn't reveal the broader scientific principles or cause and effect relationships. So the example here guides students to explore why things happen and how ideas connect. These are the kinds of statements that promote lasting understanding. The non-example are either too surface level, factual, vague to support deep learning, right? What about essential questions in this stage of the UbD? They encourage exploration and deeper thinking. They spark ongoing inquiry that extends beyond the classroom. They do not have just one correct answer. Instead, they invite multiple perspectives. How would life be different? It's an example. How would life be different if we couldn't measure time? Here is the essential question. So in what ways does art reflect and shape culture? Ultimately, so essential questions should be intellectually we can say provocative. It's not we can say questions that stay with the students long after the lesson ends and inspire continued curiosity. Okay, so I think now it's clear it's about the essential questions. Okay, what do I do with essential questions? Now, after these examples, we understand what essential questions are. First, post your essential questions visibly where students can see them every day. This keeps the questions front and center in their minds. Next, revisit these questions every day, regularly, at the start and end of lessons to frame learning and reflection. So use essential questions to guide classroom discussions and encourage students to connect ideas across subjects and experiences. For example, if your essential question is, let's say, how does let me check if you understand what is the essential question. Please write in the chat box. I want to see your answer for engagement, okay? So give me an essential question. In the chat box, please. Please, can anyone give me an example of essential questions? In the chat box. Okay, no one? Okay. Essential question in literature, okay? How does power influence relationships? You can refer back to this question during literature discussions, or maybe history debates, or even conversations about current events, right? So this question becomes the thread that ties different lessons together, helping students see the bigger picture. If you don't actively highlight and return to these questions, they tend to fade away, and with them, the deeper meaning behind the learning, okay? Lost the meaning. If you don't actively highlight and return to these questions.
Dr. Mona, we have many answers on the chat box.
Okay,
We would like to check.
Yeah. How do character actions and emotion influence his personality? Yes, it's an essential question. What is water cycle? What do you think, Ms. Maha? Is it an essential question? What is water cycle? How do Lebanon seasons shape the fruits we eat? And okay, right. How will I know that students are understanding what we intend to? You will see it later in the next slides. Okay, be patient. Okay, thank you for your response. Thank you, everyone. So interactive ways to use essential questions. We have many interactive ways, okay? Maybe we have question journals. Have students keep a dedicated journal where they write reflections or answers to the essential question throughout the unit. How does today's lesson, let's say, help us answer our essential question? Exit tickets. At the end of each lesson, ask students to write a quick response to the essential question. Classroom discussions and debates. Regularly bring the essential question into group discussions or debates. Encourage students to use evidence from texts, history, or experiments to support their answers. Think, pair, share. This is also an interactive way to use essential question. Use the essential question as a prompt for think, pair, share activities. So students should what first? Think on their own, then discuss with a partner, and finally share with the class. It's deepening engagement, yes. Project-based learning. Design projects or assessments that require students to explore and answer the essential question in creative ways through presentations, videos, or essays. Revisit and reflect. Always pause to revisit the essential questions. So big ideas are the broad, timeless concepts or principles that capture the heart of what we want students to understand deeply. Essential questions are the open-ended, thought-provoking questions that stem from these big ideas. They turn the abstract concepts into invitations for inquiry and encourage students to explore, wonder, and think critically. So when we move from big ideas to essential questions, we create a pathway that sparks inquiry. Students actively investigate and seek answers rather than passively receiving facts. Connections, student link ideas across different subjects and real-world contexts, so making learning more meaningful and integrated. Learning, through this process, students develop deeper understanding and transfer knowledge to new situations. So we can say big ideas give us the what to understand, and essential questions give us the how and why. It's fueling the curiosity, driving exploration, and weaving together rich learning experiences. In this slide, I will show you how it all connects. Let's say the big idea is the culture. And during understanding, okay, great literature reveals shared human experiences across cultures. The essential questions: how can stories from other times and places be about me? So, example, while reading things fall apart, students explore how themes like family, change, identity are both culturally specific and universal. The goal is to build transferable insight from literature, not just plot summaries. So, in order for students to perform, what should they know? What must students know and be able to do to succeed? As a teacher, as an educator, ask yourself what terms, what definitions, dates, formulas are essential. What skills like analyzing, collaborating, arguing, all are required. These skills are required, right? I will give you an example. In a climate change unit in social studies, the know here, it's greenhouse gases and the carbon footprint. Do analyze the data, write evidence, propose local solution. So you are building their toolkit for understanding. If you are following these steps, you are building their toolkit for understanding. Here is a simple breakdown to clarify more, okay? So the knowledge, the what. What is the vocabulary words? Maybe the what. Maybe I use key rules and concepts, important factual details, vocabulary. Now, what about the skills? The skills is the how. The skills is the how. Thinking and communication skills, problem solving, collaboration. For example, in grammar, I will show you how. The parts of speech, nouns, verbs, adjective, etc., and sentence structure. Do identify and correctly use parts of speech in writing and revise sentences for clarity and to make sure that it's correct. Knowledge and the skills aren't separate. They work together to help students develop a deeper understanding of language. So knowledge and the skill are never separate. More example, to match knowledge with performance, also in grammar. Okay. It's the same slide. I will repeat it. Okay. Parts of speech I said, to do how to identify and correctly, knowledge and the skills aren't separate. Okay. I mentioned it before. So here we are preparing ourselves for the stage 2 of UbD. As an educator, you should ask yourself, how will I know students have achieved the desired results? This is someone asked in the chat box. How will I know students have achieved the desired results? What evidence will show they truly understand? Okay? Just completing a worksheet or a quiz? No, I want to measure. I want evidence. I want to know. So in UbD, we don't begin with a fun activity. Instead, we start with the performance goal and work backward from there. For example, instead of ending a unit on poetry with a multiple choice test, ask students to write and perform their own original poem that explores a theme studied in class, demonstrating their understanding of poetic devices and expression. Here in stage 2, this is an example. So instead of ending unit on poetry with a multiple choice test, it's a traditional way, ask students to write and perform their own original poem. Let's quickly review where we are. We have completed stage 1, where we clarified goals, enduring understandings, essential questions, knowledge and skills. Now we move to stage 2, assessment evidence. Assessment evidence. The goal here is to think like an assessor, not just an activity planner. We ask, how will we know if students truly understand the content beyond just memorization? Let us examine this next stage together. This is where UbD really changed the game compared to traditional planning. Before we think about fun activities or daily lessons, we need to plan the assessment first. That's right. We start by designing the evidence. The evidence of what? Of learning. Then build the path that gets the students there. For example, if your unit goal is for students to understand how authors use narrative to explore identity, so your assessment might be what? Write a personal narrative that explores a key moment of self-discovery using literary techniques studied in class, example, tone, symbolism, and so on. This is one of the most common pitfalls in lesson planning. We start designing engaging activities before we have clarified the evidence of learning. Let's say you are teaching a unit on persuasive writing. A typical approach might be, let's have students write a letter to the principal about a school issue. That sounds fun, right? But if we haven't clearly defined what we want them to demonstrate, like using persuasive techniques, organizing arguments, or addressing counterclaims, then we might end up assessing effort or creativity instead of actual understanding. So on UbD, we ask first, what will show me that students truly understand how persuasion works? Then we design the task, the lessons, and the activities to get them there with the clarity and purpose. We need, again, I will say it again, we need to think like assessors first, not just activity designers. When we think like assessors, we ask deeper questions. What kind of evidence would truly show that students understand? What performance tasks will anchor the learning and reveal real thinking? How will I assess quality, not just completion? We are focused on the goals and making sure the learning leads to meaningful, measurable outcomes. While on the other hand, when we default to being activity designer, we often start with what's fun or what's fun? What's fun? What project might they enjoy? Here's the difference. Here's the difference. So that approach keeps students busy, but it doesn't always ensure that they are deeply learning or applying what matters. Right? So start with desired understanding and how you will know students truly got it before choosing what they will do in class. Understanding is built through ongoing inquiry. Understanding doesn't happen all at once. It's developed over time. Through what? Through ongoing questioning, exploration, reflection. In UbD, Understanding by Design, we recognize that deep learning isn't about memorizing facts or completing a single assignment. It's about continuously revisiting big ideas, asking new questions, making connections as learning unfolds. This is why essentially questions play such a key role. They don't get answered in one lesson. They stay with the students, promoting to think more critically as they learn more, right? You have to think it on this way. Understanding is constructed, not delivered. It's the result of students engaging in meaningful tasks and reflecting on what they have learned, not just once, but over time. So as an educator, our role is to create the conditions for that inquiry to happen. Through what? Through thoughtful questioning, rich discussions, and performance tasks that require thinking, not just recall. As an educator, you have to think of your unit as an assessment journey, not a single test at the end, but a series of checkpoints that guide and support learning. We want to anchor the unit with a strong performance task, right? But that doesn't mean we ignore all the other tools we already use. We can and should still include quizzes, exit tickets, discussions, reflections, and other checks along the way. These pieces of other evidence help us as an educator to monitor progress, adjust instruction, and support students before they reach the final task. So don't throw out your old assessments. Just make sure they are aligned with your goals and help build toward that larger performance task. It's not either or, it's about purposeful variety across the assessment journey. What should a performance task ask students to do? Performance tasks are not just projects. They simulate real-world applications of knowledge. They should mirror challenges people face outside the classroom, require judgment, problem solving, and creativity. Be open-ended, more than just right or wrong answers. Allow for feedback and revision. Encourage the use of multiple skills, not just recall. I will give you an example. In English unit, in an English unit, instead of simply analyzing a novel in an essay, ask students to write and perform a podcast episode that explores how a character's choices reflect a broader theme like justice, identity, or resilience. This mirrors what real journalists, storytellers, or content creators do, making it what? Authentic and meaningful. The 6 dimensions of understanding. Use the 6 dimensions of understandings as a guide for designing performance tasks. They ask students to what? To explain concepts clearly, interpret meaning or significance, apply in new contexts, see from multiple perspectives, also show empathy. Example, in a unit of immigration, explain why people immigrate. Interpret a poem about migration. Apply understanding to current immigration debates. Right? Consider the immigrant perspective. It's very important to use these 6 dimensions of understanding. They also express empathy through a creative letter. It's very important to use these 6 dimensions of understanding. Grasps. It's a performance task framework. It helps design powerful performance tasks. G is for goal, and what is the task? Role, who is the student in this scenario? Audience, who is the work for? Situation, what's the context? What's the challenge? Product, what will the student produce? Standards, how will they be assessed? Example for the letter 1, which is G, goal. You can educate your students about water conservation, right? The role, environmental specialist. The audience, local community. Situation, what? Water. What is the context? What is the challenge? It's water shortage crisis. Product, what will the students produce? Maybe video, right? Standards, how will they be assessed? How? Clarity, evidence. This gives the students purpose and connects learning to real life. Every assessment you design should be what? لازم يكون في بقلبه evidence, clarity, بده يكون have clear, transparent criteria, be valid, be reliable, give enough evidence to assess understanding, promote self-assessment. So you have to provide a rubric. Then you can ask your students to self-score before submitting. This also builds ownership. The last stage, stage 3. As we prepare for stage 3, keep in mind, learning activities are now the final step, not the first. What does the learner need to do? You should ask, what does the learner need to do to achieve the desired results, to succeed in the performance task? Now, we plan lessons to build the skills, deepen understanding, prepare students for meaningful assessment. So, up next, how to build that learning path intentionally. Here's the full picture again. The 3 stages of backward design. Okay? Desired results. Clarify your goals, understandings, questions, required knowledge and skills. Assessment evidence. Design performance task and other checks for understanding. Learning plan. Now we ask, how will students acquire the knowledge and the skills they need to succeed on those tasks? This 3rd stage is where we structure the actual day-to-day learning journey. Let's explore how to do that with purpose. To plan great learning experiences, we use the where to. Where to. It's acronym as a guide. Where is this headed and why? The H, hook students at the start and hold their attention. E, equip students with tools and knowledge. R, let students rethink and revise their work. E, encourage self-evaluation and reflection. T, tailor learning to individual. O, organize for optimal learning, not just coverage. This helps ensure that learning is engaging, reflective, differentiated, and above all, aligned with your end goals. A note on where to. It's an important note. Where to isn't a step-by-step formula. It's more like a quality checklist. As you plan lessons, ask, am I hooking students early? Am I giving time to rethink and revise? Are the activities equipping them with real skills? Am I tailoring instruction for different learners? I will give you an example to make it more clear, okay? So in a unit on purchase essay writing, W, where to, W, explain that students will write and perform speeches. H, show a powerful student speech on climate change. E, teach logos, strategies. Letter R, peer workshops and teacher feedback. E, self-assessment rubrics. T, let students choose their own topics. Finally, O, sequence the skills gradually, building to final performance. So, I want to ask this question. Is UbD a time-consuming and challenging approach to design? You can answer this question in the chat box. Yes or no, please. No. Yes, I think so. Yalla, more answers, please. No. More to be applied in a 50-minute session? No. Manal said yes, if it applied in a 50-minute session. Zainab Wahdi, no. So most of you answer no. Is UbD a time-consuming and a challenging approach to design? Yes, it is. It takes time and thoughtful effort. It's not a quick fix method. But here's the truth. If we want the students to engage with timeless questions and develop real understanding and solve authentic problems, then our planning must be equally thoughtful. We are not just covering material. We are creating learning experiences that matter. So instead of rushing through a novel or a short story, spend 2 weeks guiding students to analyze key themes, compare the author's message, to create their own written or multimedia responses. That's real learning. That is UbD. That is UbD. I want to see here, and we have to create an ecosystem. Yeah. Here is what I love, what I like, the 6 hats. Thinking in full color, using the 6 hats for deeper understanding. Now that we have talked about planning with where to, let us explore a useful thinking tool called Edward de Bono's 6 thinking hats. I call it thinking in full color because the students look at a topic through 6 different hats or ways of thinking. It's simple, but helps deepen their understanding. Each hat stands for a different kind of thinking. Okay, in the chat box, please. The blue hat helps what? I want to see if you know the 6 hats. The blue hat, help what? The blue hat, the blue hat. So you don't use the 6 hats in your lesson. Deduction, okay. Process and organization, yes, organizing ideas. This is the blue hat. The blue hat helps manage thinking, setting goals, and organizing ideas. What about the white hat? The white hat focuses on what? The white hat focuses on facts. Excellent, Natalie. Focuses on facts and information. What about the red hat? The red hat, about what? We are now in the red hat. Is about what? Emotions and benefits. Yes, it's about feelings. It's about feelings, how students feel about something. The black hat, risk, problems, excellent. What about the yellow hat? What about the yellow hat? Positives, benefits, excellent, Stazi Manal. Green hat. What about the green hat? Creativity, excellent, new ideas. Thank you all, thank you so much. So how does this 6 hats fit with UbD? How? This tool works well in stage 3 of UbD, especially when students are rethinking and evaluating ideas. And it can also be used in stage 2 as part of a project or debate. I will give you an example for English class. If you are teaching a novel or play, have students use the 6 hats to explore it. With the white hat, they gather facts about the story and author. The red hat lets them share their feelings about the characters or events. The black hat asks them to think about the problems or conflicts. The yellow hat focuses on hopeful or positive parts. The green hat encourages them to imagine new endings or creative ideas. The blue hat helps them organize everything into a presentation or essay. So using the 6 hats, helps students see the story in many ways, moving beyond simple right or wrong answers. Also, this method builds the 6 dimension of understanding we talk about: explaining, applying, feeling empathy, seeing different perspectives, knowing themselves, and interpreting ideas. You can use this tool in any subject, by the way, where students need to think deeply from different angles. Now that we have explored this thinking tool, let me show you how it looks in action with a sample lesson plan. I will show it to you, and I will share it on the chat box also. First, I will share it in the chat box. This is a sample lesson plan. I like to share it with you to see how to design a lesson plan by UbD and the 6 hats. Okay. Now I will open it here. This is a sample lesson plan for teachers for English language arts about UbD and using the 6 thinking hats. This is the unit title, subject, grade level, text, time frame. I showed you the stage 1, which is the desired results. Stage 2, assessment evidence. Stage 3, learning plan, where to. Here is the element and here the activities. Example using of mice and men, the hats, the focus, sample prompt. Okay, now student hand out 6 thinking hats organizer. This one is for students. Blue hat, the organizer. White hat, just the facts. Red hat, emotions and feelings. Black hat, risks and cautions. Yellow hat, positives and benefits. Green hat, alternatives and creativity. Final opinion or claim. So, connecting UbD, 6 thinking hats, to classroom instruction. So to successfully implement this lesson, it's important to blend the UbD framework and 6 thinking hats with effective classroom instruction strategies. Okay, you can read it. I sent it via the chat box, okay? Now that we have reviewed the UbD framework and the 6 thinking hats strategy, let us talk about how classroom instruction brings these elements to life in practical terms. As you know, first one, it's the direct instruction. The direct instruction is essential for setting the stage. All teachers begin stating the learning objectives, right? So students understand what they are working toward. So in this case, analyzing moral or analyzing and evaluating different perspectives in literature. We introduce the 6 hats with visuals and sentences starters. Then model how to think through each hat using sample prompts from the text. This modeling shows students exactly what the critical thinking looks like, which is the most important skill, the critical thinking. Next, we move into guided practice, where students here work in groups, rotating through each hat. Here, the teacher circulates to guide thinking, right? We check for understanding regularly, as I said before, using quick reflections or exit tickets after each hat to ensure students are engaging deeply and accurately. For mastery learning, it's important to clarify goals. What students already know about the characters, plot, and moral vocabulary. Finally, systematic instruction helps us as a teacher, an educator, structure the lesson step by step. We review key literary concepts and ethical vocabulary, develop student thinking, and so on. So by combining these instructional strategies with UbD and the 6 thinking hats, we create a structured, supportive, and engaging learning environment. This approach helps students build critical thinking skills, consider multiple perspectives, and articulate well-supported arguments, all crucial skills for literary analysis and beyond. So, if you are wondering, is this really worth all the effort? The answer is yes. Because when you design this way, students think more deeply. Learning feels more relevant and personal. Assessments become authentic, not artificial. Classroom time is used intentionally, not reactively. Finally, start with the end in mind. What should the students truly understand and be able to do? Assess meaningful learning, not just recall. Design learning experiences that are engaging, reflective, and tailored to those outcomes. Use UbD not as a rigid structure, but as a thinking tool to elevate everything you already do as a teacher. Thank you all for your participating and listening. I hope that you get benefits from this workshop. Thank you.